Yud Beis, Amud Beis. So yeah, we're a page behind. And we're actually right there. Iba Yisema. We're going to start from Iba Yisema. Iba Yisema. We have another teretz here. We had a problem because we were discussing the first temple and the second temple. Both of them were destroyed in the year after Shemitah. The first temple, we sort of worked it out. The second temple, opposite. First we worked out the second temple. Then we went back. No, first we were working out with Yecheskel. That was the first temple. Then we worked out the second temple. In order to work out the second temple, we had to establish that we were going with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that holds that you don't do 50 years and then 50 years for the Shemitahs. The way you do the Shemitahs is 49 and then 49. So every Yovel, you've already begun the new Shemitah. That's their independent calendars, Shemitah and Yovel. It's much easier to calculate. If you say, I have 49 years, then I have the Yovel year, and then I start over from the first Shemitah again, and then I do again 50, right? And it would be 49 plus 1. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold that. Rabbi Yehuda holds it's 49 and 49. The Shemitahs don't interfere with the Yovel doesn't interfere with the Shemitah. If we were going to do that, then we were able, if we go like Rabbi Yehuda, we're able to figure out, we're able to work out exactly that the temple was destroyed exactly the year after the Yovel, if we go according to Rabbi Yehuda. The problem was, what about, it didn't work out because we're 14 years off, so we said, oh, that's not an issue because the first 14 years don't count, because we're dividing and conquering. Dividing and conquering. Iba Yasema, really, if you want, you could say, La'ilam Rabbanan. That we're going to follow the opinion of the Rabbanan. And the Rabbanan held that you do 50 years. And then the Shemitah cycle starts again. The Shemitah cycle doesn't start in year 50. You know, 7 Shemitah cycles would be 49. So year 50 would be year 1. That's according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbanan say no. The 50 is like a 0. And then year 1 starts in year 51, which is year 1 again. Says we can go according to the Rabbanan. It's not going to match. The second temple isn't going to be destroyed in the first year after Shemitah, which was the way it was explained in the book of Seder Olam. That's how Rabbi Yossi said that. It says that the same occurrence happened in the second temple, that it was destroyed on a Tisha B'Av, and it was a Sunday, and it was during the watching of, or during the service of this Yehorav, that family, and it was the year after Shemitah. It says it's not referring to every single detail there. It's just in general. I'll show you the other ones. Hachinam Mistab. You have to say that when it says the second temple was destroyed exactly like the first one, and Tisha B'Av, Sunday, it can't be referring to every detail. Why? The service of Yehorav in the second temple wasn't even there. Mihave, right here, Vahatanya. Vahatanya? Vahatanya, but it was taught in a Brisa, right? Vahatanya. Vahatanya, but it was taught in a Brisa. Arba Mishmar Salam and Agayla. There's 4 groups of Kayanim that came up from the exiles in Babylonia. See, not everyone came back. Only 42,000 came back. Who were those 4? It says Yedaya, V'charim, Pashchar, V'imar. Those 4. And Amdu Nevi'im Shabiram V'chalkam L'chavdal L'shmar. We had to divide those 4 into 24, which means each one of those 4 gets 6, right? right? If you have 24 cookies and 4 friends. So they had to get these. You okay? We had to divide up these 4 groups just into 24 because that's the way it works. There's 24 groups of Kainim. Each one would serve officially. Each one would serve twice a year, 2 weeks a year in the temple, plus a drop. But actually, it's only 50 in a Jewish calendar. There's only 50 weeks, so right, not 50, not 52 in the lunar. So Balalam, they took all these names, they put them in a basket, v'nastam b'kalpi, in a box or a basket. Ba Yedaya v'natal chalka v'chelik chaver sheish. Yedaya took 6 of them, his and 6 others. So he was able to pick out which weeks would be his weeks. Ba charim v'natal chalka v'chelik chaver sheish. The same with charim, v'chein pashcha v'chein yimar. So and it continues. V'skinu neviim shebeneim shafil Yehorav reish mishmar sa'ila. Even Yehorav, who happens to be in the first temple, was the first of the cycle of the 24. He was the first of the groups. Even if he does change his mind and decide to return to the land of Israel, come back from the exile, but La Yedcha Yedayim Kam Yedaya still is going to be first. Ali Yedaya Iker, Yehorav Tafalai. This is a proof that in the second temple there was no Yehorav. If Yehorav wasn't there, then that brisa that says that when the temple was destroyed, it was during the service, or during the week of Yehorav. You can't mean that, because Yehorav wasn't even there in the second temple. So therefore, when the brisa also said that the temple was destroyed in the first year after Shemitah, and the same thing as in the second temple, it can't mean each detail there, because there was no Yehorav, and it also wasn't in the first year of Shemitah. So what does it mean? It means it was destroyed on Tisha B'Av. It was destroyed on a Sunday. It could mean the other things that it mentioned. It doesn't have to be every detail. Ella Shaira. It's talking about those other details that we mentioned in a comparison between the first temple and the second temple. Ravashi says, we had a problem. This is in the second temple. We said like this. The second temple lasted for 420 years. So we said 400. First was 410. The second was 420. So we have 400 means you have 8 yovels, right? 8 yovels. Now we have 20 years. So if you go according to the Rabbanan, that it always starts over after the year 50, it starts over from 1. So you have 8 yovels. Now we're up to the 420. Now we're up to the 20 part. So I have 2 Shemitas in the 20. In those last 20 years, I have 2 Shemitas, and then I have a remainder 6. 14 would be 2 Shemitas, and 6 left over to the 20. The problem is that it says the temple was destroyed in the first year after Shemitah. It's not. It was destroyed in year 6 of the Shemitah. That's 2 years later. So it doesn't fit. So we explained that it went according to Rabbi Yehuda, and you subtract 8. And then we had it worked out. We calculated it out. It was the 8 and 6 would be 14, because you have an extra. If you have 8 yovelis, you take each of the 50 years out and you add it back. So 8 and 6 would work out perfectly. But Ravashi says, no, you don't have to do that. You can go according to the Rabbanan. We have a remainder 6. Hanach shish shnei. Those 6 years, ad salak Ezra. That was until Ezra returned. Umakdish leika. Ad salak Ezra. Umakdish. Does it say umakdish or umikdash? Umakdish like a chashuv. Ezra ascended and sanctified. The land are not counted. So those first years, Adasalik Ezra, Makadish or Makdish, like a chashuv. Those 6 years that Ezra remained in Babylonia, those don't count, because Ezra was waiting with Baruch ben Neriah, who was his teacher, and he didn't come back to the land of Israel while his teacher was alive. and because there was politics in the land. There was another Kohen Gadol there, and Ezra was a Kohen, and there were other things. But he waited in Babylon. He came back later. The Ksiv, as it says, Ba'adin b'tela savidas beis Elohana dibir Shalem. It says in Ezra that the service or the working on the temple was neglected in Yerushalayim. Uksiv v'sheitzaya beis Adonai ad yom tlasa liyarach hadar, and they finished the house in the 3rd day of the month of Adar. Dishnas shis lamalchus dayavish malka, which is the 6th year of Dayavish. V'tana ba'is man l'shana ba'al Ezra. And 1 year later, which is in the 7th year, Ezra returned. The Galusayim, and the exiles returned with him. That Ezra returned in the 5th month, in the 7th year of the king of Daryavish. He returned. So you see, the construction started in the 2nd year of Daryavish, and it finished in the 7th, or finished in the 6th. Ezra returned in the 7th. So then there's 6 years there that aren't counted as part of the cycle for the Shemitahs. Okay.
But if you run the Shemitah consecutively, under that theory, it works out perfectly.
Everybody say hi to Eli Raffaello.
Good morning.
About time.
You do it consecutive. From then, you take off these. Then it
gives you eight cycles, gives you 392. Then you go to 397. Then 505. Then 512. Then 412, 419, and 420 is the year after the Shemitah.
We're not doing that.
I'm saying, but under that theory, you don't have to worry about these 6 years.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I have to work that out after. I have to work because something's funny. But okay, at least that Rashi is learning it like that. Like that, it's that we're following the rabbis. Maybe we need the year after, year 421, to be the destruction, not year 420. And that will only work.
It's 419 is a Shemitah year. Right? I think?
No, if we don't count the first 6, take off 6. So, the temple existed for 414, and it was destroyed in 415.
415?
As you take off 6 years. So it's it lasted for 400, from Ezra, lasted 414, and then you have the 415 would be the destruction. I guess that's the plan. The significance of this is, how do we calculate the Shemitahs today? This is a very important Gemara. Because if you have worked out what year is Shemitah when the temple was destroyed, then you'll know what year is Shemitah today. So there were times when, Taisvus and Ksubis writes, don't go to the land of Israel. There are mitzvahs there that you won't be able to keep, and it's not good to violate those laws. It may have been they weren't sure the dates in the Yovel that would mess everything up. But then when everyone returned during the days of after the Inquisition and Beis Yosef's time and all of that, they set the Yovels straight. They not the Yovels, they set the Shemitahs in order. So we go according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that you don't need the 50th year. So it's only 49. So you just have to you take the number of years and divide it by 7, and then it's perfect.
How do we keep this by
Now, because we've calculated from the year of the destruction, that has to be year 1 after the Shemitah. And until today, I forget what it was. When was the last Shemitah? You remember?
Oh,
Tafshin Samach, I think, was the Shemitah year. They have it worked out based on this Gemara. What year it should be.
how do we keep Shemitah on?
Oh, what do? We don't work the land. Yeah. Goof.
Somebody told us to do over, was it every, we say we do yoga every 50 years or every 50 years?
It says Shnasa Chamishim, which means the 50 years. What is it? What's the difference between 50 and 50 years?
Because you do every 49, it's the 50th. It goes first.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but the question is really if the Shemitah has to start after the Yovel. That's the question. Okay, Gufa. It was taught before. Shiva Asa Yovelas Manu Yisrael Mishnichnas Solaritz Vachiyatsu. There were 17 Yovelas, 17 50 years. The Jewish people counted from when they came to the land until they left. That's why is that 17? Because it was 850 years from the entering of the land. Actually, from the entering of the land until the first destruction. 480. It's actually 440 until the temple was built. That we have that's a pasuk in Malachim. That Shlomo Melech built it after 480 years from the Exodus from Egypt, which means 440 they were in the land because 40 years was in the desert. And then we know that it lasted 410 years. So 410 plus 440 is 850. 850 means that there are 17 Yoivels, 1750 years. So you can't say that they counted when they first came in. Because if you'll say that, that would mean that the destruction was right at the beginning of the Yovel, and it's not so. The problem is that Yecheskel, 14 years after the destruction, has a prophecy, and he says that my prophecy takes place 14 years after the destruction in the year of Yovel. How does he say the year of Yovel? Because he says on Rosh Hashanah on the 10th of the month, which basically means Yovel, because the only year that Rosh Hashanah is on the 10th of the month is Yovel, because the Yovel year, they blow the shofar on the 10th of the month, and all the laws of Yovel start then. So that would be a term that means that year is Yovel. So you can't have a Yovel year 14 years after you just had a Yovel, right? So it must be that we have to Sheva Shekivshu. The Gemara doesn't conclude, but it must mean that we need to drop the first 14 years, 7 of conquering the land in with Yeshua, 7 years of dividing, and that leaves us 14 years off at the beginning, gives us 14 years at the end, and that's why it was in Yecheskel's prophecy when he saw the third temple, that was the Yovel year. How do we know that there were 7 years for conquering? How do we know that it took 7 years? Ka'amar Kalev, because Kalev says Ben Arbaim Shana. There's a whole bunch of corrections here. I don't have the psukim here. Anoichi, I guess. B'shaleach Moshe Eved Hashem Oisim Mikadosh Barnea l'Ragal Asaretz v'Gomer. I was 40 years old when Moshe sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. How appropriate, right? If we would have done this yesterday.
When he came out of Mitzrayim, he was 0.
No.
Just born.
No. Wait 1 second, you'll see. Because it wasn't at the end. The Haftarah was at the end when Kalev goes into the.
He's talking about the first.
The first one.
Okay.
So V'yata hine anoichi hayayim ben chamish u'shmeinim shana. And he says, and now I am 85 years old. And this is talking about when the land is, when he's getting that a portion. But Amar Mar, the master taught, which means a quote of a brisa. Shana Rishayna Asa Moshe Mishkan. The first year Moshe made the tabernacle. Shnia, the first year after the Exodus. Shnia, the second year, Hukama Mishkan. They set up the some awesome Mishkan. Shnia Hukama Mishkan. It was set up because the Nisan. It was set up. B'shalach Meraglim. In that year he sent the spies. He over Yarden, when they passed over the Jordan, Kalev bar Kamahava. How old was Kalev? Tamnan Nachi Tartin. he's 80 minus 2. Because he was 40 when he was sent. 38 years later, he was sent in the second year. So 38 years later, when they're coming into the land of Israel, he's 78. Kika maflig nachlais, when they're dividing up the lands, ka'amar ben chamesh u'shmeinim shana anoichi. He says, I'm 85. So 78 to 85 means that they've conquered the lands and they're ready to divide. The Sheva Kivshu, because they took 7 years to conquer. Now the Gemara asks, V'sheva shechilku min alan. See, his portion was already known to him that he was going to get that. It was promised him. But the other ones, they had to divide it up and all of that. I don't know. Is that what it says? Kalev married Batya? Did you know that? Kalev married Batya. Is that what it says? Yeah? How old was Moshe? Moshe was 80 at the Exodus, right? Moshe was 80 at the Exodus. So Batya had to have been
older maiden.
At least 80, right? At the Exodus. She must have been She must have been at least 40 years older than Kalev. She couldn't have been 1 year old. 45. I don't know how. She was converting, according to the Medrash, right? She was going to the mikveh to convert. So how old would she need to be to convert? 12, I guess.
She had a lot of money.
So Kalev was an inheritor.
She was a Gilgal of Chava.
Was that what it says?
Oh, because Chava is the only one who was really Batya, the daughter of Hashem.
Interesting.
Oh.
I'm learning a lot today.
And she saved Moshe Rabbeinu because Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gilgal of Eber. Shem killed Eber.
Hevel.
I mean Hevel.
Hevel.
Yeah, not Shem. Cain and Hevel. Hevel.
So Moshe says that.
Moshe was a Gilgal of Hevel, and because Batya couldn't save him the first time around, Chava couldn't save him the first time around, she came back as a Gilgal to save Moshe Rabbeinu.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
You learn more
I'll tell you the night. Iba Yisema say, how do we know that it took 7 years to divide? Iba Yisema midasheva kivshu sheva chilku. If you want, you could say, because it took 7 years to conquer, so it took 7 years to divide. I'm not sure exactly what the explanation for that is. But Vima Yesema, Midlai Mishkachas Lu Arba'as Rishanach Achar Shehuk Seir. That from this pasuk itself tells me that I needed 14 years. So I have 7 for the conquering, automatically I need 7. It's the pasuk in Yecheskel that tells me that I needed those extra 7 years to divide. How do I know it was 7 years? The pasuk in Yecheskel. We're working the opposite. We said, see, we have a pasuk in Yecheskel. How are we going to answer that? That it's 14 years. It's Yovel. So okay, that tells me that it took 7 to divide. Ein Peichsen. We have a new Mishnah here. In case we lost the calculation, you start from here fresh. Ein Peichsen mishisha tloim hamavukarim belishkas atloim. You're not supposed to have less than 6 sheep that are examined in the chamber of the sheep. They would have a room in the temple because they would bring sacrifice. They had a room where they held the sheep. There should be always 6 there that are examined, that are ready to be brought for sacrifices. It should be enough if you have 3 days of holidays in a row, which is Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah. You should, because you need to bring a sacrifice in the morning and the sacrifice in the afternoon. So that would be 6 animals. But you can have forever. You can have much more than that. Adayla means you can continue adding. You're not supposed to have less than 2 trumpets. Mitisha kinoris, from 9 harps. But you can add as many as you want more. But the symbol was alone. Oh, excellent. You're going to need this. How did you even know?
Somebody did his homework.
Oh, this is the one that was, you see this, look at what it says. Hiviu umnen me Alexandria Mitzrayim.
Wow.
Remember, because we said it was blemished?
Right.
Wow.
So that's, you would only have...
That's a symbol?
These are the ones that were, the blemish was repaired and the repairs were
This is a real
Which
teacher.
one is the symbol?
You're the professor. Uh-huh.
Where's the bass drum?
So this would have
You
to
can't have
go.
that in a temple.
I don't know if it's going to do the sound because I'm holding. Yeah, it does.
Just woke up Eli Raphael.
Very nice.
Oh, good job.
Did you raid the museum last night?
So what are those made out of, by the way?
Ah,
They brass or copper?
these are brass. These are real symbols. But brass, remember, is
Is zinc and
copper.
Yeah.
Okay. Now these, if you look at them, they don't look like brass. They look like they were like steel painted over. They're all scratched because they don't have that ring to it. These are phonies.
Yeah, look at that. Give your money back.
Counterfeit.
So, Vatziltzil Levad, the symbol alone. Watch this Gemara. It says, the Gemara asks, 1 second. You said that you needed 6 for Rosh Hashanah.
This is a symbol?
Yeah,
Or
these
the
are
one that you hit it with a stick?
No, these
We're going to
are-
see it.
These are
It's
hi-hat
these.
symbols. These
You're
are
going
the
to
ones
see
that
that
go
it's
up and
these.
down. These are the ones you hit. It says one pair of symbols.
Yeah, that's what we're going to get to. That's added in the pair, right?
This is the band at the base of Mikdash?
Yeah.
Building the band, right?
It's trumpets, cymbals, and lyre.
2 trumpets.
Harps.
A minimum harps.
Harps. Okay, the Gemara asks, Tmidim Musaf and Tuvav, but what are you saying that you need 6 for Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah? You have all of the sacrifices of the Musaf. There's much more than that. Where it says Tana Ba'al Makai, the Tana is just speaking in general. And what he means to say is Vatmidim L'chudei Kai, and he's just referring to the everyday sacrifices. So what does he say for Shabbos and for Yom Tov? And for Rosh Hashanah? I'm sorry, it must be Rosh Hashanah. What's that yud? The Shabbos Vishnei Yom Tovim Shel Rosh Hashanah it's supposed to be. Simana Ba'alma, that's just a way of remembering that you need 6. Doesn't mean that you're actually right before Rosh Hashanah and you only have 6 sacrifices. No, it's talking about you're in the middle of the year. And every time in the middle of the year you always need 6 animals in that room, as if there should be enough for Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah. And this is what it means. You're not supposed to have any less than 6 in the Lishka Satlar Marba Yamim Kaidim Shchita for 4 days before the slaughtering of it. The way it would work is that you would bring in, you had 6 sacrifices there, and they were there for 4 days. Then, see, before the temple was even constructed, you would have that already. Before the inauguration, you would have to have that there. And then, the first day of the temple, you would sacrifice 2. And later on, you would replace those 2. And then, the next day, you would continue to slaughter another 2. And that means that after there's always 6 there, but each one is waiting just 4 days. Each one is waiting just 4 days to be sacrificed. That's how you do it. Okay. Umani ben Bagbagi, and it goes according to the opinion of Ben Bagbag. Ben Bagbag, according to Tosfos, in it could be it's the same as Ben Hayy, but also it was a ger, right? Because of the hay. Hayes and Gimel equals hay, and that was Avram had an extra hay added to his name, so he's a Ben Avram. That's why
Also, it
it's
stands
Ben
for
Bag.
Ben Ger or something like that.
Oh, really?
Something.
Isn't that interesting? Tanya ben Bagba Gomer Minayin LaTamid Shaton Bikor. How do you know that the Tamid needs to be examined? Arba Yom Kaidim Shchita 4 days before the slaughtering. Talmudayim Tishmur La'akav Li B'Mayadai. You should guard it to bring to me, to offer to me in its time. And it should be guarded until the 14th day. This is talking about the Korban Pesach in Egypt. When were they told to take it? They were told to take it on the 10th. When were they told to sacrifice it? On the 14th. So that means that they held it for 4 days before they sacrificed it. It's actually from 10 to 14, it's really 5, but it was held for those 4 days. Afkan Tan Bikar Bar Yamim also, Also, here it needs to be examined for 4 days before it's slaughtered. Dekanami, I'll prove it to you. That we're not actually talking about Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah. I'll prove it to you. Diktani, it was taught in the Mishnah, Kedei l'Shabbos, v'lei Ketani l'Shabbos. It says in order for Shabbos. It doesn't say for Shabbos. Kedei in order means so that there should be enough, but not that we're actually need it for Shabbos and for Rosh Hashanah. That's why it's just a sign. How many animals do you need in that chamber? You need 6. But that doesn't mean that you need 6 because you're standing right before Rosh Hashanah. You need 6 every day of the year. And that's just a way of remembering that it's 6, because it's possible to have 3 days of holidays in a row, Shabbos and 2 days Rosh Hashanah, and then you would need 6. It says, it says that you can have 2 trumpets, and you can add as much as you want. Etc. 2 trumpets, 9 harps, and you can add ad olam. The Gemara asks, ad kama? Until how many? It's a strange question, because we just said ad olam. So Tosfos asks over here, on the bottom, Tosfos is on the wrong, is printed on the wrong page. It was complicated for the printer to match it up perfectly. So sometimes we ended up with the Tosfos down here, and because it's meant. Yeah. So Tosfos